A major pattern change is coming with a low pressure system diving out of the Pacific Northwest and into the Mountain West next week. That's going to create a temperature clash with some of the warmer air developing in the central parts of the country, which will result in a storm increase across that region. I've got the information on what you need to know with that storm, as well as the potential for a tropical threat to develop along the southeastern Carolina coastline late next week and next weekend. That's coming up in this video. Alright, I appreciate you joining me here. Go ahead and leave a like down below and hit subscribe if you're into this content. For your Saturday and Sunday, this is your weekend weather. We're talking about highs in the 90s in many portions of the Mid-South, but we've got plenty of 60s and 70s falling on down out of the northern plains for us here for your Saturday. The weather into Sunday, we've got a front kind of draping out of the Midwest, heading down into the southeast, right along the Gulf Coast and all the way back to New Mexico is where we have a lot of precipitation this weekend. So let's play out. Again, we've got Hurricane Lee. I talked a bunch about that over the last 2 weeks as it's made its way towards the northeast. Now shifting our attention away from that into what's next, and it actually really is this on-land system here across portions of the Midwest, but especially a bigger one I'll talk about later in the video. Now here you can see we've got a little bit of rainfall coverage. We could see some isolated severe weather coming out of portions of the Great Lakes tonight. This is your Saturday, of course, and then as we go into your Sunday, we're going to see these storms push on off towards the east, making their way through portions of the Carolinas, the Mid-Atlantic, as well as on over into the northeastern region. Maybe some very heavy rain totals out of this in a short period of time, but overall this is going to be moving quickly enough that we're not looking at too big of a flood concern out of these storms. Your temperature anomaly as we go towards Monday, September the 18th, you can see we've got temperatures getting as much as 5 to 10, even 15 degrees above average in portions of the plains as well as Dakotas. It's going to be in the eastern part of the country and the far western areas where we're at least a few degrees below average, so really kind of a symmetrical pattern with that heat building in the central part of the country. Really, this pattern is going to persist into the Great Lakes region towards next weekend. You could see temperatures are very much so expected to be well above average at portions of the Great Lakes region as we head towards your late week, September 21st through September 25th. So this really encompasses next weekend overall. Even portions of Texas above average with a pretty good below average readout into portions of the Southwest. A moisture uptick will come with a new system moving into the plains. You could see a little bit drier than average at portions of Arizona and New Mexico, but overall we're going to see a pretty good amount of precipitation riding over that and heading on over into the plains. And yes, Texas is still included, so after a long dry stretch in the plains, we're getting some much needed rain, but it could come in the form of some severe storms, and we're going to go ahead and get into talk about that storm system right now. By midweek, a weird storm will be forming in the west. You could see a few pieces of energy combining. This is your 500 millibar height anomaly, and really what this is just showing us in the mid levels of the atmosphere. Is it cooler or warmer than normal? We're talking about cooler than average temperatures. This is where we're beginning to see some energy gather together, and this cool storm is actually going to bring snow to the Mountain West and instigate some storms in the plains. We could see some totals all the way out up to a foot in some of the higher elevations here into places like, say, Wyoming, Idaho, as well as Montana. That would be on the higher end, though. Most mountain spots will only pick up a few inches of snowfall, but nonetheless, some of the first snow of the season could be exciting for us here in this area, especially at some of the ski resorts. And then on that right side graphic, you could see some of the reds and pinks in the plains. That's indicating lightning flash density from the European model. So let's go ahead and take a look at how this next system really comes to life for us. You could see a massive activity really with a low pressure system kind of sprawling out over the plains as we head towards your September 21st. So this is as we're heading towards, say the middle to the end of this week. We're talking about some of these storms potentially working their way south and eastward across the plains as well as the upper Midwest, and that will continue to progress on off towards the east as a kind of a weak low pressure system sets up there. But that's not the main piece of energy that these models are picking up for the storm system that I'm telling you about. It's really this next one building up into the Mountain West, and you could see how this really transpires as we head towards next weekend, with cooler air going to be rushing in behind it. And this is really what's looking like a pretty big fall front, especially according to the GFS model that I'm showing you here. We could see some dangerous storms, maybe even enough spin to create some tornadoes along this line all the way down to South Texas. This is as we're heading towards your Sunday of next weekend. And this front would continue progressing on off towards the east and maybe weakening a bit as it does so. But again, this is really not set in stone. This is just to show you how strong it's looking like the system is going to be, and it is looking like a pretty significant storm, especially for this time of the year, that could certainly initiate some severe weather and maybe even some significant flooding into portions of the plains, and maybe another one behind it. Rainfall from Tuesday through Saturday afternoon. of this week, and you could see some of these colors in the portions of the Dakotas, Minnesota, all the way on back to eastern Texas. A lot of this rain will be falling this week, and we're talking about overall subtotals of an inch or two of rain, but some locations in this entire swath, but especially in the portions of eastern Texas, we could see 2 to 4 inches of rain in some of the locally higher totals from these storms. But a lot of this precipitation, in terms of the rainfall precipitation amounts, that goes all the way back on over into the Mountain West, and then some of the lower elevations there will get some much needed rainfall, keeping drought away in some of those areas as well. Now, our severe certainty that initiates out of this storm system Tuesday through Saturday of this week, the same time period I just showed you, the rainfall potential, I'm talking about low severe weather potential all the way from the Rockies and the Front Range heading on over to the Ohio Valley, but I'm thinking the best chance of severe weather is going to come out of the Dakotas and all the way on down to eastern Texas and heading on over in the general vicinity of the Mississippi River Valley for us here. And the chances are subject to change, but I'm certainly telling you that there is an increased chance for some slight risk, maybe even an enhanced risk or two as the week goes on into portions of the plains, which is pretty abnormal for this time of the year, one of the quieter times of year for severe weather. Major temperature class out of this system, it's certainly possible. The GFS showing temperatures as much as 30 degrees below average, moving on into portions of Nebraska, as well as portions of North and South Dakota for us here. And notice how that would at least try to move east with this front, but you could clearly make out that backwards C shape as that front would be moving eastward. It looks more classic of a wintertime front, but that's still to be determined. What isn't to be determined is that the tropics are still very active with Lee, a post-tropical, but still hurricane-force storm pushing on up into portions of Nova Scotia and New Brunswick in Canada for us here, but still wrapping back around into the northeast. We've got Tropical Storm Margot, Tropical Depression 15, and an area to watch out in the Atlantic right now. The good news is that Tropical Storm Margot poses no threat to the United States, as it's going to be making an eastward turn and soon turning into a post-tropical depression as it makes its way on over towards the Azores there, into portions of the far northeastern tropical Atlantic. But nonetheless, this has been around for a little while, and we got some pretty impressive satellite imagery looks at this storm as it was a hurricane there, and a weak one at that. Now, this new tropical depression will become Nigel this week, as it's Tropical Depression 15 of the Atlantic hurricane season. This will likely be another fish storm, but it could become a pretty significant storm as it pushes on off towards the northeast, and I'll show you what I mean by that in just a second. It looks to generate some more large swells for Bermuda, maybe some lower end rip currents along the east coast of the United States, but most impacts from this will not be near land, even Bermuda. So let's play this storm out. Again, I'm circling the two entities that we're watching right now. This is Nigel that I've got I circled first, and then we've also got Margot out here into the northeastern tropical Atlantic. Let's play this out as we go into the start of the week, and here we go through the middle of the week time frame. Again, Nigel beginning to strengthen, pushing on off towards the north and west, but overall Margot just really falling apart. Not much left of that system, and it'll just be, remnant energy by the time we head towards your September 20th. Now, Bermuda is just west of the wind reach of the storm for us here. This is Nigel as we head towards the middle to latter part of this week. Here we go into your Thursday. The storm beginning to race on off towards the northeast and combine with a low pressure system that hit the east coast for this weekend. Overall, that low pressure system will not be too strong for the east, but it could bring some rain into the northeast, say Wednesday time frame, by the way, and even before that. But look at how this system pushes on off towards the northeast and turns into just to a mega giant. I mean, we're talking about like thousands of miles of area covered by that storm. But that wouldn't be affecting anybody. What could affect some people here in the southeast is this low pressure system developing along the Carolina and southeast coast. And that is something that the models have been hinting at now for a couple of days, and we need to watch this moisture very closely because these long-term model trends from the European and the GFS do have a potential tropical storm or hurricane trying to form just as before this pushes into, say, the South Carolina or North Carolina coastline. So monitor the forecast late next week and into next weekend in the southeast, as we could see some pretty big wind gusts as well as some heavy rain as we head towards, say, your Sunday, September 24th, heading towards your Monday, September 25th, that time frame. The GFS has been going more gung-ho on this. This is not something uncommon with the GFS model to go gung-ho on systems, but overall the European model still at least shows this being here with a chance for some strong winds, again, to push on into Georgia, the Carolinas, as well as North Carolina, with some remnant energy forming that tropical storm from a front. Thank you so much for watching this video. If you really enjoyed it, go ahead and like, subscribe, and leave a comment down below with any questions or concerns. Have a great day, everyone.